Hello and welcome to the DJ and Vish. I guess now it's just Sunday morning show. It was the day after show for a while, is now the Sunday morning show. DJ, how you doing on this Sunday morning? A couple of days from New Year's now.
I'm doing well. I got fat a lot over the last couple of days. Ate a ton of food, but I don't regret it at all. Spent some time with my family, watched some bowl games. Apparently, there's a lot more bowl games than I thought there was, but I loved all the football nonetheless. And just an appetizer. Speaking of food, for this upcoming game that I've been waiting for what seems like forever, and I'm sure you have as well.
I've been waiting for 22 years, man. But anyway,
Yeah,
before we do that,
yeah.
let's give a shout out to our sponsor, 305-800-PAIN. After an accident, every minute counts. With one call to 305-800-PAIN, you get immediate access to trusted doctors and attorneys who guide you step by step. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, they are a brand you can trust. Much like 5 Reasons Cane's, 305-800-PAIN is focused on the local community of Miami-Dade County and South Florida. They'll handle all your accident needs, including car accidents, personal injuries, and related legal matters. So after an accident, be sure to call 305-800-PAIN. The number is the brand, 305-800-PAIN. Después de un accidente, cada minuto cuenta. Con una llamada 305-800-PAIN, ustedes pueden obtener acceso inmediatamente a doctores y abogados para ayudar con todo el proceso. Con una clasificación A+ del Better Business Bureau, pueden confiar en ellos. 305-800-PAIN tiene mucho en común con los 5 razones que están enfocados en la comunidad local de Miami-Dade County y el Florida del Sur. Ellos pueden ayudar con todo después de un accidente, incluyendo accidentes de carro, lesiones personales y otras cosas legales relacionadas. Entonces, después de un accidente, llama 305-800-PAIN. El número es el nombre de la marca, 305-800-PAIN. All right, DJ, as you foreshadowed, it's been a lot of bowl games, but there's one that has a particular interest to this show and to our fan base, which is the Cotton Bowl coming up in Dallas on Wednesday night on New Year's Eve. I guess we'll let's start with that. Like, just overall, how are you feeling heading into this biggest game the Canes have played in 20 years?
I'm feeling a little nervous because this team is better than any team that they've faced the entire season in the Buckeyes. And I know we all want Miami to win, but, at the same time, I am feeling very nervous.
Yeah, no, it is. They are a very good team, in particular defensively, which we'll definitely get into as the show unfolds here. Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity for the Canes, right? There are, the 3 wins from a championship, which, we're still only a few years removed from you and I doing a post-game Middle Tennessee State game show where the kids got their doors blown off. So it's a remarkable, journey from there to where they are right now. But
I'm glad you specified which post-game show, because there were a couple post-game shows where, I might have lost had a few strands of hair over the last couple of years, but
yeah, no, that I think that was the low point because Jazz and Blue were at the game, you and I were not, and they bailed on that post game show real quick.
yeah. It just
but I held it down, DJ. We've been through the wars together. We'll talk about how this Canes offense overall is, including Carson Beck, matches up against Ohio State. Shout out to Anthony as well.
Hey, Anthony, good morning.
So yeah, I guess let's start with that since Mike No Go Zones has thrown it down. So I mentioned earlier, this Ohio State defense is nasty. No one's really been able to score on them. The most points they've allowed this year is 16 against Illinois and 14 to Penn State. Like they're no one. Even in their loss, it was a 13-10 loss. So I guess what are your overall thoughts on this Ohio State defense, which obviously I think obviously it's an excellent defense, but what are your overall thoughts on it and how the Canes might be able to attack it?
This Ohio State defense is really good, obviously. Let's state the obvious here, but I think one of the ways that Miami can attack it is just to get the ball out quick, which means a lot of screen plays, which I know is not everybody's favorite, but just a lot of screen plays, a lot of quick passes, a tempo offense, not a slow, deliberate offense, because I think if you run a slow, deliberate type of game plan, that just plays into Ohio State hands. So I think just maybe get the ball out quick and run the offense a little bit quicker. And, you might this might be a game where you have to get into a shootout. So, I guess it's going to be really interesting to see how they attack this. But for me, like I said, I would just try to get the ball out quick and try to get the ball to your playmakers immediately. And one of the things that occurred in the Texas A&M game was that we started slow again. Thankfully, Texas A&M also started slow, so that wasn't really too big of an issue. But we gotta come out firing right off the jump, or else we're gonna be in trouble. You're on mute still. There you go.
Yes, no, I'm not. Yeah, I do think it's gonna be a little bit of being patient. It doesn't need to be Texas A&M levels of low scoring, but I do think this is not. Ohio State hasn't been in shootouts; they haven't given up points this year, so it would be uncharted territory if the Canes if the Canes score 17 points, that'll be the most Ohio State's given up this year. So it's not exactly, they got to be patient with it because Ohio State has the two best teams they played are Texas and Indiana, and they did struggle offensively in both those games. So I do think this is another game where the Canes will look to lean on their defense. And so I think offensively, it's taking care of the football. The whole, let's force the ball to Malachi Tony on every play, I don't think is an approach they should be taking.
Nope.
I think they did do that basically the entire A&M game. And I think running the ball, like you said, easy throws, getting the ball out, avoiding negative plays, and trying to, move the ball and just string some first downs together, eat some of that clock, shorten the game a little bit. Because, again, I do think, look, the Canes defense is no slouch either. They're going to have to lean on them. So offensively, you don't want to turn it over, put them in short fields or do anything like that. And just, again, stringing first downs together and moving the ball. It's one of those, field position type of situations where if you don't score, you get a couple of first downs, you can pin them. That's the game the Canes are gonna have to play. It's not gonna be it's not gonna be a high scoring back and forth game. That both these defenses are too good for that. So I do think when you come in game planning offensively, you've got to account for that. Don't turn off your offense into their offense. So I think it's job one there. So leaning on Fletch, leaning on just getting the ball out quickly and not taking any risks with the football.
I'm also very curious to see if they completely shut down Malachi Tony, which is obviously very hard to do. But if that happens, who's going to step up and be that playmaker that they need to win the game? Obviously, you mentioned the running game and Mark Fletcher. So will it turn into a more run-based offense if Malachi can't get anything going? Will they lean on another receiver? I am interested to see what would happen if the Buckeyes were able to take Tony away because, not a lot of teams have done that this season either. And you can bet that he's scouted, highlighted on the defensive scouting report for the Buckeyes as a player to watch. So I am very curious to see how they attack him and if Miami can still, get him heavily involved in the offense as much as they did against Texas A&M. Again, like you kind of alluded to, I don't want that. I don't want him to have the ball on every play, but I'm just curious to see how Ohio State or what they do rather to neutralize him.
Yeah, and this is as you said, this is that game plan was bizarre against A&M to a certain extent. We're not the only ones who said it. If you watched anyone covering post game, they were like, "What were the Canes doing?"
Yeah,
especially in that first half. Why weren't they running the ball more? Why weren't they calling any normal plays? There's a lot of trick plays, gadget plays to get the ball to Malachi. Because even, against Pitt, he had 13 catches and then a bunch of runs too. But even in that, and he threw a touchdown. But even in that game, a lot of those catches were normal pass routes that, Carson found him on. It wasn't a lot of whatever the hell that A&M was. So
yeah.
Because there are other playmakers. Anthony's mentioned the tight end position. That is a potential mismatch.
There we go.
In the Canes' favor. We've been hot and cold on Elijah Lofton's performances all year, but he is very difficult to cover for a linebacker. That's a potential exploitation point. especially if they're keying or over keying on Malachi Toney. And look, CJ Daniels and Keelan Marion are really good wide receivers. And I know this sounds stupid, but I think the Canes could have benefited a little bit in the last game, just calling normal pass routes and throwing them the ball.
That's not stupid at all. I was screaming for it the whole game.
Hey, call a little curl here and throw a 5-yard pass. And they didn't really do any of that. So I think there are opportunities if Ohio State kind of tries to key on Malachi and really dedicate multiple people to him. I do think it then opens up opportunities for Lofton and Daniels and Marion.
But if Lofton is out there, I don't want him to be out there as a decoy for one trick play or whatever. I want him to be involved in the game plan, because we've talked about this before where Hurricanes have put him out there for a play or two just to kind of mess up the defense and then take him off the field. If he's out there, I want him involved in the game plan and utilized. I don't want him to just be a one play, type of player and then off the field. If you're going to put him out there, utilize him.
Yeah, and I think it's important to get him enough snaps to do that. It doesn't. I mean, we did this a little bit with Chris Johnson last year too.
Yep.
When you sub them in, the ball's going to him. So it'd be nice to have Lofton in for a series of plays and not hey, we can give him the ball 3 times in a row and then do it on the 4th time. But I just don't know if that's his role here, just because he's really, if he's on the field, that means that Daniels, Toney, or Marion is not, because Bauman is the actual tight end. Lofton's more of an H-back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where they're really struggling with. How do we get this guy on the field consistently without pulling another weapon off?
That's a good point.
And we talked about this earlier. It's hard because, if this was back in 25 years ago, he's the best fullback in the country. He's on the field on every play, running I formation stuff, and he's a huge weapon.
Fullback.
The Canes,
bring back the fullback.
The Canes use that. Speaking of the last time they were in positions like this, they last championship they lined up at. Najee Davenport was the fullback on that team. He ended up being a running back in the NFL. They exploited that position, but that position doesn't exist anymore, and it's fine. But it's hard to get. When you have 3 receivers, and I do think the Canes want Daniels, Marion, and certainly Malachi on the field at most times, it is hard then to have Lofton on the field as well, because he's not your traditional end of the line, put your hand in the ground tight end like Bauman is. He is much more of an H-back.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'll have some packages in there, and a lot of it will come down to what they saw in film where they think they can potentially attack, because no one's been successful against this Ohio State defense. So it's something they can look at, the game plan and say, oh, this is a good exploitation, or this is something another team did that was really successful, because there isn't really any of that on tape, because no one's really. They lost that Indiana game 13-10. It was, and the Texas game again they held Texas to 7 points and won 14-7. Those are the two kind of good teams
that was the season opener, right?
Yeah, that was the first game of the season. But those were the only 2 times that they played.
I watched those out the window. Week 1, I'm like, that doesn't count. Everybody just getting their feet.
Well, we definitely count week 1 around here. Yeah. Around here, Danny. It's very, very relevant to our program. So,
according to some Notre Dame,
don't pull Notre Dame on me here. No, but I do think both their first and last games were really the only times they played that top quality, because their schedule is weak. We should point that out.
Yeah, they are.
It's not a tough schedule. They didn't play Oregon. The second, I guess, Illinois or Michigan is the second best Big Ten team that they played. So, so one of those two, either one, but those are not top teams. So they did play Texas, who was a top, just outside the playoffs, and then obviously lost to Indiana, who's the number 1 team in the country. So those are kind of the only 2 where you can say, okay, similar, playoff caliber teams. How'd they do? They scored 14 points and 10 points, but they held them to 7 and 13. So,
I think that's the thing. if your defense can hold them to 10, you can kind of scale down your game plan, knowing that you.
I think that's got to be the
give your
game
defense
plan
time,
coming in
yeah.
offensively,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's got to be the game plan. It's got to be we got to trust that this defense, which has really not given up points in months,
Yeah.
is going to continue to do that because as good as look, Ohio State's defense again, it's kind of shocking to see the most points they've allowed this year, 16. But the Canes have been doing that for a while too now. Even the SMU game that they lost was, it was 17 points. And then they forced overtime to get to 20 points on the last play of the game, right? So this is a defense that has been holding scoring point totals down. So I think that has got to be the plan coming in. It cannot be we're going to score 30 here to win this game. It's got to be 20 should do it. I think that's got to be the plan coming in. So again, that lends itself to some conservative play calling. Just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate anything. And I'm sure there's some shot plays they'll have in the playbook and all that. Yeah. But I would not, try to like wing it all over the yard and try to put up 4. No. I don't think that's the game.
And knowing him from New England and from just the NFL and what he was able to do while he was up here, Matt Patricia is very good at disguising things at the line of scrimmage and also dropping guys back in coverage and disguising that as well. So he's able to give opposing offenses a lot to think about when they're on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm very interested to see what Matt Patricia is going to do to try to neutralize Carson Beck, and if Carson Beck can counteract that. And it was funny because people laughed when Ohio State hired Matt Patricia, but Bill Belichick put him in a very difficult spot as offensive coordinator, and he's been what a mess that was. But anyway, he's been absolutely fantastic as the defense coordinator for the Buckeyes, and I'm very interested to see what the Hurricanes will do offensively to counteract those different looks that he brings. It's going to take a bit of creativity, I think, on the part of Dawson. So, and creativity is not necessarily something that we saw a ton in the A&M game, and we've struggled with it at times this season. So I'm very curious to see what Dawson can do to kind of, outsmart Patricia. It's going to be one of the more interesting chess matches of the entire game, I think.
Well, there's a couple of things, right? So one is winning up front and running the football is a neutralizer for all that crap.
Yep.
And actually, if you look back at if you look back at the A&M game and those runs on that last drive that Fletcher had, especially if you look from like the sky cam behind the play, Elko is also very good at disguising his blitzes, which is why they're so good in third down. Canes caught them in a couple of blitzes, which is why those holes were there, and they did it by just winning up front and beating the defensive line. And then those linebackers that are doing twists and stunts and blitzing are out of position to stop the run when you shove the D line back. So that's a neutralizer. The other thing is, again, we talked about this. Just simple passes to the edges can neutralize a lot of that. All of that, that science in the middle where you're trying to confuse you and you're going to drop this guy and zone blitz there. You throw to the edges, it kind of is not there.
Yep.
All that stuff is much more in the middle of the field. So again, there are things you can do to counteract that where you don't even really mess with a lot of, let me try to figure out who's dropping and who's not and because you can, again, if you throw little out routes and throw the edges and run those I know everyone's favorite play, those wide receiver screens, those don't
love them.
All of that disguising and all he's doing don't really matter for those types of plays. Because you're just kind of getting the ball out and getting it to the edge. You're not trying to fit it over the middle, which is where the exploit is. So I think there's just going to be an element of keeping it simple here. Run the ball, throw to the edges, throw those screen passes, just move the ball forward. Big thing would be something that showed up against A&M some, especially in the run game, but didn't really show up as well in the pass game, which is the wide receiver blocking. When you throw those screen passes were not effective against A&M because they were winning at the point. Their DBs were winning at the point of attack. Ohio State's DBs are very physical. They actually had an interception against Indiana off of a screen pass where they just blew the play up and batted it up in the air. So you gotta hold those blocks on the perimeter for those plays to work. So that'll be a big key as well. Just this is an excellent wide receiver blocking room. All of these guys get hat on hat and generally win their battle. They did not win those screen passes. They did win the run games. In fact, they were. Again, watching that game back, there were multiple plays against A&M where they actually motioned Daniels over or Marion over, and they'd be the lead blocker because they would, motion over behind the offensive line and follow them into the hole, and they'd clear the linebacker out. I mean, these kids can block, but they got to win those one-on-one battles on the outside to hold those blocks. And then that screen game, again, those screen games are just you're trying. Look, if you get an explosive, great. If you're just trying to get 4 or 5 yards and keep everything moving forward, and that's going to be the key. No negative plays. They're excellent on penalties against A&M. They got to do that again. There were no precepts. There was no holding, and I think any of that. It's very difficult to pick up 15 or 20 yards to get a first down.
I think there was one false start, but that was all I counted.
No, there were no false starts. There were 2 delayed games. There was the standard David Blade jumped off sides, and then Armando Blunt's personal foul. So I mean, if the offense plays clean again, that'll be a huge help because again, those extra 5 yards against this defense are really hard to beat. So again, just even if you're picking up 2 or 3 yards, keep everything moving forward. Don't get too far behind the chains. Keep it third and medium, third and short. I do think Carson Beck has become very careful with the football.
Yes.
And as long as you keep getting first downs and kind of have some success, you can continue with that. If you don't, and it turns into okay, now we're down multiple scores or something, then you got to cut him loose. And that's going to be the more feast or famine we've seen from him in the past. But if you keep it close, he's been very good at managing these games down the stretch and making the big throws when he needs to, but picking his spots, checking down on long yardage and just punting. Like that's all doable when your defense is holding up. But do I think he has the moxie and grit? I mean, he's been through it all at this point. So yes, from that standpoint, I'm not worried at all. Now, if we get into a situation where the Canes have fallen behind, it is very much flip a coin. When he cuts it loose,
that's where I wonder if he has the moxie and grit.
Well, I mean, that's not moxie and grit. That's just he has he gets into trouble when he tries to make too many plays. Again, if you go back to the Louisville game where he threw half of the interceptions he threw this year, whether it was in the one game.
That's a crazy stat, isn't it? Yeah.
It's 10. He's thrown 10 and 4 were in that game.
Wow.
So 40%. Like those were downfield shots largely that got intercepted. One was a 4th down where he just had to we missed a blocking assignment and he just threw it up for grabs, which he had to. But then obviously the one at the end was the killer. But the other 2 were deep shots he took that the play wasn't really there. And so that's what he needs to avoid. I think he's been generally careful with the football this year, though. So I'm less worried about that as long as the game is, competitive. But if like Ohio State jumps out early and then you fall behind, you're gonna have to open it up. Then you can't continue to just, play methodical. If you're down 14-0 or something, you're gonna have to start throwing more then. And then that's feast or famine because he has shown an ability to make plays too. Like the Florida State game was basically all him.
Yeah, he had a great game.
So I mean, but that's the more that takes it out of the known into the unknown. But I'm very comfortable that he can manage the game as long as it's the game plan is for him to manage it.
That's
I'm not
the big
as
question
confident. I think it will be because I think that's kind of the choice the coaches have made. Is that
I definitely agree with that. But my thing is that if stuff starts going south or if they're behind, what type of Carson Beck are we going to see? That's the big question for me. I have no doubt that he's an excellent game manager and can perform really well when it's kind of an even playing field, so to speak. But if stuff gets rough and he falls behind, how is he going to react then? That's the big question for me.
Yeah, and again, he's shown an ability at both Miami and Georgia to win games with his arm. So it's not like he can't do it. It's just, again, the Canes want to control this game. They want to play it at their pace. They want to be physical. They want to be low scoring. So if they can keep in that realm, that's plan A. But look, Carson Beck throwing a lot and having to carry this game with his arm is not necessarily a problem. It could go bad. It could not go bad, right? He threw all those interceptions at Georgia last year. If you watch like that Alabama game where he threw the interception at the very end, like he brought them a huge comeback. And then it was kind of a jump ball in the corner of the end zone that Alabama intercepted on the last play, or their last real play.
Mm-hmm.
That Georgia Tech game last year, they were basically dead, and you threw a bunch of touchdowns to get to overtime.
That was crazy.
So he's got that ability. So it's not. And I will say, Ohio State's a very good team, potentially a great team. It's hard to say because again, they haven't had that much competition that they've played. They played better. They played one team, Indiana, that was way better than anyone the Canes played. Because Indiana's the number one team, and talked about this on last Monday's show. They beat the number 2 team on a neutral site, the number 4 team on the road. Like the game's ever heard the number 1 more than that. So they're definitely. But then after that, the next best team that they played was Texas. Was worse than Notre Dame, who the Canes beat. And then you start going through the schedule. It's a lot. There's a very soft bottom on the Big Ten. You don't really have a lot of those teams bunched in the middle.
Yep.
So they really didn't get what usually you get in the Big Ten, which is week in and week out. Their team is pretty good. You kind of get tested. Even though they played like Illinois and Michigan are good teams, there were weeks off in between all of these games. Like they didn't have to, stack those games together like you usually have to in the Big Ten, where you're like playing a good, like, oh, you got to play Oregon, and then Iowa. And Iowa's not the greatest team, but they're challenged, and you got to play them right after Oregon, right before Illinois, and then it's like, 3 in a row. Like look at Alabama's October, for example, where you just stack after stack, and if you just played one off against that team, it's relatively simple. But if you play it as part of a string of like 4 in a row, it becomes much more difficult. Ohio State never had that string of games. In fact, the only time they played 2 what you would consider good teams in a row was Michigan, then Indiana, and they lost to Indiana. So they haven't really had to play that string of games in a row, but what they have put on the field has been complete dominance from their defense. So we'll see. This is a different offense they're playing. I'm very confident saying this is the best offensive line they're going to play.
Yep.
And, A&M led the country in sacks. That was very strong on the defensive line. The Canes just bullied them.
I almost want to say that this Ohio State team is the best defense that they're going to play too.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And it's going to be the way it's very. And A&M was the best defense until, and you know what? The Canes only scored 10 points, so it's not like they lit that defense up.
Yeah.
But I do think what came across pretty clearly is the Canes did win up front in that game against a very, very good defensive line.
Yeah.
And so something is going to give here because the Canes have obviously lost 2 games. Ohio State's lost 1. Neither of those teams, again, if you watch back that Indiana-Ohio State game, even in losing, their defensive line won that matchup with Indiana's offensive line.
Yeah.
And if you look at like Louisville and SMU, the Canes won up front those games. So they still lost the game, but they won up front. It was turnovers and officiating and all this other crap that went into the loss. Neither of these units have ever lost like their individual battle. Someone's going to. And how you respond to that, because I remember last week people were asking, why didn't Texas A&M chip with the tight end or try something to control Bane and Mezzo? It's like you don't have that in your play because you win up front.
Yeah,
there's not like an adjustment that you would really have to make, and so someone's going to get out of their comfort zone, depending on who depending on who wins that battle up front, and that'll be a huge key. The Canes can't win up front, they can't run the ball, and they can't protect the quarterback, and that's a huge problem. But if they do, all of a sudden, all those exotic packages that Patricia has kind of brought, and a lot is predicated as I can screw around back here because I'm winning up front.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think that matchup is definitely the key. As much as we talk about Malachi Toney and Fletch and Carson Beck and Often and all the skill positions, Ohio State's got excellent defensive backs. And, we start talking, it's really up front where something's got to give, because neither of those units really have lost a head-to-head battle. So, and whoever does lose, it doesn't necessarily mean you lose the game. Again, the Canes dominated the Aggies' defensive line, and the Aggies were 5 yards from tying it in the last play of the game. So it doesn't mean you necessarily lose the game, but it does take you out of your comfort zone.
I definitely want to get to some comments here because I think you guys bring up a lot of good points.
Yep.
Good morning, Anthony. Good morning, Mr. Overdose. Good morning, Orange and Green Blood. Good morning, Soul. Appreciate you all coming in. Let's see. I'm just looking at this comment from Anthony that says, when it comes to Ohio State's defense, they care more about playing as a unit than individual stats. And I think that's a really good point, because you see the way that they swarm to the football and how they play off each other within their own defensive scheme. And it's very rare, in my opinion, that you see a defense with so many high caliber players, except for maybe Miami's, who really work for each other and play off of each other well. And I think that's partly why that scheme works. They're not worried about the interceptions. They're not worried about the tackles for loss. They're just worried about trying to fit in the scheme, and I think it's worked for them.
Yeah, no, their defense has been excellent, but they also have not faced. I think the Canes have the best offensive line in the country. So, and we said that before the year, and I think it's come to fruition. And it's kind of interesting as we've watched this season progress. If you recall at the beginning of the year, what did the Canes? Florida State was different. They hit them up. Like I said, Carson Beck won that game by throwing a bunch of touchdowns. But if you look at the Florida game and the South Florida game, those were two high leverage games. The Notre Dame game as well. It was bully ball. You're gonna hand it to these running backs and shove it down your throat, and by the fourth quarter, you're gonna cave in. And you saw those end sequences where the opponent was not really, especially Florida, right? It was 13-7, and then it was 26-7 or whatever the hell the score ended up being really quickly. Just because again, eventually wear out, and that A&M game was a little bit of back to that. We're just going to lean on the offensive line, the running game, where especially in the month of November after the SMU game, there was kind of more of a mixed bag of they're running the football, but also throwing it quite a bit. So I'll be interested to see what they do here. I think plan A will definitely be to run the ball, and then if that fails, again, Carson Beck can throw. He can make plays, as Orange and Green Blood pointed out. His record, he's lost 5 games and won close to 40 at this point. He doesn't exit the field a loser very often.
And I definitely agree with this comment too about Corey Heatherman is showing himself to be a generational talent. He has done phenomenally with this defense, and it's a lot of what he showed at Minnesota as well. Great defensive line play, strong secondary play, physical. The Gophers don't win games 40-10. They win games 13-10, and it's predicated a lot on solid defensive play, both fundamentally and putting the talent in the best position to succeed. And he's done that here at Miami too. I was curious coming into this season whether or not that Minnesota type of defense, that style, that physicality, execution would translate over to Miami, and it definitely has, and he's done very, very well.
Yes, that's a great transition to the other side of the ball. So I guess he's obviously been excellent this year. He's a Broyles Award finalist for a reason. Yeah. It's matching up against an Ohio State offense, which, the headline's obviously Jeremiah Smith. They do have a freshman quarterback. They're 2 best opponents they've played against. They've struggled offensively. I guess what's your overall feel going into this game?
I feel like if the Hurricanes can get pressure up front and make Julian Sayin get off his first reads, get a little bit uncomfortable, then they have a great shot at winning this game. And I understand that that's true for pretty much any quarterback, but you've seen the games where Ohio State struggled, and it's been because he's struggled as well. And, it seems like when he gets pressure, he tends to kind of really get a deer in the headlights type of look. And if you cannot get pressure on Julian Sayin, if you let him throw, you then obviously involve Jeremiah Smith, and that guy's pretty good. So, I mean, I like this matchup in terms of the passing game. I'm very interested to see how Ohio State's running game does against our defense, but I wasn't really too high on Julian Sayin, to be honest with you, at the beginning of the year, but hey, they're here in the college football playoff. He had a pretty good season, so it's definitely going to be a challenge for the Canes, but I think it's going to be one that that they can conquer, provided they just stick to their fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, this is again. I think the Canes' defensive line is very good, not just on the edges, but up the middle as well. So it's very important. Again, like you said, they bother Sayin. Ohio State's a little bit uneven running the ball too. They do have a 1,000-yard back, so they've had some success. But again, competition matters in that as well. But they don't. It's not something they've been able to really. Not that they've had to, but it's not something they've really been able to turn and hand the ball off and 25 carries for 200 yards and just run over people. So it'll be interesting to see how Heatherman approaches that. Does he kind of concede a little bit of the running game to say, let me focus on pass rush, getting pressure around him, trying to upset the quarterback here. The Canes have been very, very good against the run in the last month and a half. So it'll be interesting to see, do they think they can just stay in base and stop this running game? I think that would be the plan coming in. As you alluded to, he's still a freshman. He's got a lot of football under his belt now, but this is kind of his by far the biggest game he's ever played in. The previous biggest game he played in, he lost. So, it's where we talked about that great play they made to intercept the screen pass against Indiana. That short field was their only touchdown in that game. So that is, they struggled to score the ball. We're going to talk special teams in a minute because that was one of the reasons they struggled to score the ball. But I do think this is a matchup that the Canes can win, and they're going to have to win this, right? If Ohio State's, Jeremiah Smith is getting behind the defense and catching touchdowns and making big plays, it's gonna be hard for the Canes to keep up with that offensively. So I think that's really important.
I feel like though
they win this battle.
Sorry, Vish. I feel like that the Canes can play bend but don't break if necessary, because one of the things that Ohio State did struggle with was scoring in the red zone. They only had a 66.7% red zone touchdown scoring rate, and they also sort of struggled with it against Indiana in the Big Ten title game when they only had 2 scores on 4 red zone tries. So it has been a pattern for them to struggle in the red zone. So I think that's where the Canes could, maybe make their money, so to speak, is to limit to field goals, and, they could have a chance to limit the touchdown scoring possessions that the Buckeyes have, because that is something that they struggle with. I feel like, I've watched them a lot this season, and they're very good in the open field, very good in long yardage, driving down the field situations, but the red zone is the one area where they really kind of struggle.
Yeah, and again, it's a situation where they did not have to they weren't really challenged this year other than the 2 games we mentioned. Part of that is because they were so good. Part of it was the competition. So I agree with what Orange and Green Blood's kind of the same thing. You were talking about the muscle memory and just getting him out of his comfort zone. Julian Sayin, doing that, starting with that, and I think that can potentially throw the whole offense up. And to your point, red zone, defense, if the Canes are able to stop the run,
Yeah.
And force him to make those throws in the tight windows down there, is he going to have the confidence to let it rip? I don't know.
Can he? Yes. Much like Carson Beck. Can he? Yes. Is he always successful at it? No.
Well, I mean, would he though? I think is also another question, right? These are different. I tell you, the Carson Beck we're seeing right now would throw it into the stands and say kick the field goal. So
yeah, true. Yeah.
to your point, holding. So I mean, we'll see what happens with these red zone cashing those into touchdowns will be huge for both teams. I mean, this is part of it, Anthony, but this is so he's talking about the way our defensive line sets up and we do wide splits a lot of the time, but that's getting into situations where you're able to because you're winning first down on that, and your linebackers are filling, and there's a lot that goes into that. So it's not as simple as just because it's not just the offensive line versus the defensive line. It's bringing blitzers. We largely stopped blitzing against A&M because we were getting home with the 4, and then also Marcel Reed was killing us running, which is why that stopped happening because we left spies. And so this game, that's definitely not an issue. Julian Sand is not a threat to run. And so I think we're going to see much more of the blitzing that we had seen, against different quarterbacks, because they're less worried about that. And just again, trying to get him out of his rhythm, throw him off his spots, don't let him get the ball out when he wants to. And I think that's the big thing, right? Like that is the one. Like Jeremiah Smith is obviously outstanding. Best
I wish we got him, man. I wish we got him. Ugh.
He's the best wide receiver in the country, but if you can upset the quarterback, the ball doesn't get to him.
I wish we got Jeremiah Smith. I know why we didn't, and it is what it is. But man, he would look good in this offense. He would look good anywhere.
We'll go with our boys in this game, and I'm happy to have our kids. And I think.
Oh, I am too. But,
he's dependent on the quarterback getting him the ball, and his numbers are a little inflated against Indiana. He did have 144 yards, but 50 plus was. If you didn't watch the game, the last play of the game, they threw a Hail Mary from Ohio State did from their own 20 that Jeremiah Smith caught like at the Indiana 40 and was immediately tackled because they were just going to make sure he didn't. You don't when it's that situation, you don't actually go for the ball defensively. You just make the tackle.
Yeah.
Because you're 40 yards from the end zone. So you don't want to do anything stupid there. And so that was a lot of his yardage in that game. He did have a couple of big plays, but if you can upset the quarterback then and get pressure, then that does take a lot of that away. The other thing I will say, the Canes are actually it's hard to notice this watching, but they're actually one of the worst tackling teams in the country.
Really?
Yeah, but the reason it doesn't show up is the way they swarm to the football. So they lead I think they're bottom 10 or something in missed tackles. It's very bad.
It definitely doesn't show up on the TV, yeah.
But there's like 4 guys there. It's because they swarm to the ball and they run to the ball so much. So I think that's again a key is to make sure they're continuing to do that and tackle well, and to get off the field here. That's been when the defense has struggled. It's been giving up third down conversions. It's not really been the big plays or the explosives. So again, just making sure you're tackling well. God, if David Blake could stay on side for the whole game, that'd be fantastic. But I do think this is a matchup the Canes have to win. I do think it's one they can win. I do think the Canes defense is better than Ohio State's offense. So I think that's got to show up. If Ohio State's offense wins this matchup, it's very hard to see a path for the Canes winning this game.
Yeah.
But if the Canes win this, if the Canes defense wins this matchup, which I think on paper they should, I think the only real mismatch is Jeremiah Smith, which is a big one because he's outstanding, but there's a lot that goes into getting him the ball. And I do think the Canes D-line is better than Ohio State's offensive line.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I like the Canes linebacker playing a game like this. And even the secondary is very good. It's just Jeremiah Smith is that guy. So yeah, so I do think this is a good matchup defensively. So we'll see. But they definitely gotta keep Ohio State out of the end zone, keep the score down to help the offense out. It's not gonna
Jeremiah
be Texas
Smith, but
A&M
also
levels.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Zach.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Jeremiah Smith, but also Carnell Tate. You don't want to leave him alone because he is prone to the big play.
Yeah, and he's had a huge year as well. I think on any other team, he'd get a lot more hype.
Yeah.
He's one of the
Yeah.
better receivers in the country as well. So no, they are the receiver versus DBs is a matchup that the Canes do not have an advantage in. You say Ohio State has the advantage. I think the rest of the offense versus defense, you'd definitely give the edge to the Canes, and it's inside out. It's how you play football. So if they get the pressure, just having better receivers is not enough if the Canes can pressure the quarterbacks that the ball can't get to the receivers. And I think that's what the Canes defense has to do. All right, last thing as we kind of head towards wrapping up here, we will do predictions tomorrow on the Sixers Game Show, so definitely tune into that 8:30. Blue will be back. Oh, man, he went to that UNLV bowl game. I'm sure he didn't have a great time there, but they came up a little short there. Special teams. So obviously Carter Davis missed more field goals against A&M than they did the entire rest of the season. He had missed 2 all year. He missed 3 in that game. What are your feelings, confidence-wise, in him if he needs? Like, do you think he? I think it's fair to say it was wind caused.
Yeah.
Do you think mentally though? How do you think he's feeling coming out of
that? I'm sure it's affecting him a little bit. But I feel confident that he'll be able to bounce back and play at a high level again. Like you mentioned, and you saw it on the TV. He kicked the ball; it went 35 yards to the left, and he didn't even aim it there. So,
good turn. Yeah,
no wind to worry about. So, I'm sure it's affecting him a little bit mentally, but I think as long as he makes one, even if it's like a 15-yarder to start off the game or something like that, then he'll be back in business. And they're in a dome, so we don't have to worry about any weather issues.
Yeah, and then what are your thoughts on Ohio State's kicking game? So obviously, like they missed a chip shot. Their kicker Jaden Fielding against Indiana, which everyone's looked at. That was one of 3 field goals he'd missed all year. So it's not like I know they're not very confident in their kicking game, but the numbers are there. I mean, he's missed that kick. He missed one between 30 and 39, and then missed a 50-plus yarder. He's made everything else. So
he has 102 points. Jeez.
Yeah, no, and he's been their kicker for 3 years. He's kicked in big spots.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when you miss at a big spot like that, it exaggerates your kicking woes.
Yeah,
I think he's fine. Frankly,
both teams should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, if one of them, so it's interesting, right? Because both kickers have been very successful this year. They also both missed key kicks in their last game. So we'll see. A lot of kicking's mental. We'll see how they adjust to it. Both of them have really good numbers this year and have been pretty accurate. I will say, again, Jaden Fields has been Ohio State's kicker for 3 years now. He's 0 for 3 over 50 yards. So the accuracy on distance hasn't been there, which again, as you talk about bend but don't break, if you hold, because obviously Carter Davis has a huge leg. I think anything within 55, you'd go ahead and attempt indoors without questioning it, and kind of expect him to make it. He's got a good long kicking record. I'd be interested to see how Ohio State approaches that. Again, I don't have the context for these numbers, so they do play in cold weather for a lot of their games, so that could also, ball doesn't carry as well, it's hard to kick it, so that could also play a role. But I would say if there's a long kick that needs to be made, the Canes probably have a slight advantage.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about either special teams unit for both teams. I think both teams are very capable kickers. This game could come down to special teams, so it'll be interesting to see how they play overall. And one other guy that I really wanted to mention really quickly that the Canes should watch out for is Caleb Downs. I mean, he's a dynamic safety, probably one of the best in the country. And I'll be interested to see how the Canes offense kind of neutralizes his impact as well, because he's great in coverage as well as coming down to make a tackle. So they're definitely going to have to watch out for him, on Wednesday. But just as Malachi Toney is circled on the Buckeyes scouting report, I'm sure Caleb Downs is also circled on the Hurricanes scouting report. So
yeah, and this is one of those situations where if you're forcing him to come down and tackle Fletch a lot, that's a win.
Yeah.
Because you're forcing him to play downhill versus if you're not able to run the ball and he's able to stay in coverage, then you've got a problem throwing too. So we'll see. Okay, to wrap up here, what is the one thing you think needs to happen for Miami to win? Not a prediction, but it will happen. Just what do you think? If there's one thing.
One thing. Get the pass rush going early and often. Actually, can I do two things?
Yeah, you can do as many as you want.
I hate to do one thing. Get the pass rush going early and often, because if you give Julian Sand time, this game will be over before halftime. And then second thing, start fast if you're Miami. Please start fast offensively. Score points. None of these lulls until the second half, and then turn on the Jets. You do not have time for that against Ohio State. So pressure saying, start immediately, and I think we're going to be okay. But if they can't do either of those things, it could be a long day.
Yeah, for me, it's just dominate the turnover battle.
Yeah.
Protect the ball, get pressure on Sane, force him to make mistakes. That short field, again, I agree with the orange and green, but I do think Carter Davis will be fine.
Yeah.
And so I think, even just turning them over, kicking field goals, just stacking this, it's going to be one of those games where being opportunistic to get your points and inflating your point total and depressing theirs. And the way you do that a lot is with turnover. So, it's okay to punt. So just don't make the stupid mistake and force them to. Again, I will say, I think underplayed a little bit is, when's the last time a freshman quarterback won a championship?
I can look that up.
This is a little bit of uncharted territory here.
Can I add one more thing to my list?
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't play cute. If the hole's there to run the damn ball. Don't do any of these screens and misdirections. Don't try to force Malachi Toney, because the Ohio State will key onto that and take advantage of your mistakes. If the opportunities are there, just take them. Don't try to do anything cute if it's not needed, and just play your game.
Yeah, and if the Canes make Ohio State's freshman quarterback look like a freshman, that is a path to victory. I can't even.
Trevor Lawrence. 2018. And the only other one prior to that was Jameel Holloway in 1985 for Oklahoma.
Okay, so we are. I think it's. Maybe
I forgot about Lawrence. I don't know.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
How far has Clemson fallen ever since Trevor Lawrence is no longer? Man,
yeah, that's an interesting that season. Trevor Lawrence wasn't even the starter at the beginning of the year. It was Kelly Bryant.
I remember that name well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he took that job over, and the rest is history there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No.
So there's Trevor, and again, so it's not like it's impossible, but I do think it's being underplayed a little bit, like how difficult it is for freshmen to win in these spots.
For sure.
And so that is a huge advantage for the Canes. Doesn't mean they'll win. That is the one. Again, if you look at Ohio State's a monster, right? So if you look across the board, it's not like this big hole here we can exploit, but that is one where you look at, say, a freshman quarterback in a spot like this is one that you can hope to disrupt and cause mistakes out of.
It's going to be a good game either way. I'm really excited for this one. This is the game that not just because I'm a Canes fan, but also just because I'm a football fan. I've circled this on my calendar. This and then the Alabama-Indiana game should be two great games. They're saving the best for last, so I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, no, I mean this was that play calling in the A&M game was some of the most infuriating.
Me and you are on the same page, Orange and Green.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I mean, plan A should always be when you have this offensive line. Hey, let's try and hand the ball off. If that works, you don't need to go to plan B. It's very it's very risk averse, and if your low risk plays are also high reward plays, why are you calling anything else?
Right.
I agree. I would expect Ohio State to come up and try to, they're going to be looking for that. I think Ohio State will be a lot more aggressive taking the run away than A&M was. So I think the Canes will have to throw a lot more than they did in that game, but don't make that choice. Like, make them force it.
I want them to use Malachi a little bit less than they did against Texas A&M.
And honestly, the trick plays have got to be dialed down. Like, even to start the second half, clearly, they'd seen, hey, we can throw to the edges.
Yeah.
Because that was where most of Beck's passing yards came with those two plays.
Yeah.
He completed two in a row that were really good throws to the edges that led to big plays and, got the Canes down to the A&M 35 and then immediately called a reverse and lost 5 yards. It's just what? Why?
What are you doing? Yeah.
And then Fletch broke off a big run to get inside the red zone, but they didn't finish the drive. And he ended up 5 yards short.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was just it was a frustrating game plan. I think on reflection, Dawson probably wishes he just called a little bit more, standard play calling. So I think we'll see. I think cute plays is the accurate description. Like getting into the red zone and flanking out Markel Bell. Let's not do that, and let's just run behind it instead. So I do think we'll see probably a little bit more traditional play calling. I do think someone asked earlier, was the wind a factor?
I think it was Anthony. Yeah, I believe it was Anthony.
I think the wind was a factor with regards to they stopped taking shots. And actually, if you watch, and I saw this in real time, but because I was sitting in the end zone there, but if you watch the sky cam of that deep shot to JoJo, that ball was about to drop in the breadbasket, and then the wind took it and it stopped spiraling and started fluttering.
Yeah.
And I think that was the end of them trying to throw the ball down the field like that. Because that could have gone anywhere. It ended up landing out of bounds, which was fortunate. If it landed in the field of play, probably it's intercepted. And it was a perfect throw on the release when if you watch the trajectory of it, it was going to hit JoJo in stride, and then it just the wind just took it and basically batted it down.
I think you said the same thing about a Marcel Reed throw too that you saw.
The first interception Fitzgerald threw. Look, I don't think it was there. I think he missed his target, but he didn't hit. He was trying to lead his receiver into space, and I think he overthrew him. That happened, but the ball ended up 5 yards behind the receiver because the wind pushed it. You could see it kind of take a little bit of a turn and kind of hook towards Bryce Fitzgerald, who intercepted it, obviously. So. Yeah, it was not good. So I do think that hampered a little bit, but I also do think, we'll never know for a fact, but I do think the plan coming in, all those gadget plays, he put them in, he installed them, and I think he was going to run them.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Yeah.
I think they saw something. I guess they thought hey, if we flank out our offensive lineman, run this reverse, it'll hit. And it just didn't work. And I think there were plays there that they thought would hit that didn't work. But I think they installed all those in the playbook to use them.
Yeah.
So I think they would have thrown downfield more. Even the intermediary passes, if you look at on the last drive of the first half where Carson converted that big third and long to CJ Daniels. That ball fluttered too, and that was just over the middle for a 15-yarder that, kind of Daniels made a great play on it because he tracked it, but it was just really hard to throw, but I don't know if that necessarily was the reason for all the trick plays. So
yeah, I'm hoping I'm hoping they buck that trend a little bit, but we'll see.
well, I think we'll see more of a normal. We'll probably see more of what was kind of run against, Pitt and NC State and that type of stuff in this game. Given that's indoors, so you're kind of comfortable with the conditions and we'll see what happens from there. All right, DJ. Well, that game is Wednesday night, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 local in Dallas.
Let's go. You're gonna be there, right? Yeah, you're going.
I will be there. We're gonna have to figure out when. So I'm flying back the first morning when we would normally do this show. So we'll talk. There will be a show. We'll have to figure out when we're gonna do it. DJ and I have to. We can't not do a show for the
We'll either be hungover and celebrating or mourning. Well, we'll see.
I don't know, but there will be a show at some point on the first. I guess we can sort of commit to, but I haven't talked to DJ about that all. But I'm flying back when we would normally do the show on the next morning. So I will land back in Miami around noon, and then all the other playoff games are going. So maybe we'll squeeze one in between a couple of the playoff games or something.
I'm gonna be up early on New Year's, so maybe we'll do it early.
Well, I can't because I'm flying back. My flight's at.
Oh, I thought you were flying in the afternoon. Yeah.
No. I'm flying in the morning. It's a 3.5 hour flight. So, and then I lose an hour. So, I think my flight's at like 8 a.m. from Dallas, but it lands in Miami at 12:30. So, we might have to squeeze something in the afternoon there if we can. We'll figure it out, or maybe we'll just stay on the second or something. We'll figure something out there. There will be a show wrapping up the combo with DJ and I at some point next week.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm
all right, but yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, we've been, for some of us, we've been waiting for this game for not just to have the Canes playing games of this relevance, but also this opponent in particular. So it's been a long time coming. That game is New Year's Eve, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Miami, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. DJ. I'll see you in the middle of the week. We'll wrap up what needs to be a victory. Go Canes. Beat Ohio State. Thank you. Appreciate you as well. Let's go win this game.
Guys. Thanks
for moving.
Yeah.
Fiesta ball on deck. Let's go Canes.
Go Canes.